Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow guest.
It's Mr. Solis.
All right, and so it's been a while, or earlier this month, I believe we covered AEW All Out, correct?
Yes.
And so we're back here. End of the month, Extreme Rules for WWE occurred, and honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, I did not even know the event was happening this Sunday until I saw people posting that it was happening this Sunday.
Oh my. And I'll be honest, from the get-go, that I did not watch this event, but on Sunday night I was watching a live WWE, a live wrestling show in Los Angeles. Pro Wrestling Guerrillas, 3 Mendes 6.
Hey, I'm glad that you're here so I can ask you about how was it, sir?
It was good. It was a solid show. It was a ton of action. There was one spot fest match. It was so balanced. There was a comedy match. Evil Uno fought. That was a really cool match. But there was the technical one, Jonathan Gresham versus Alex Shelley, who was returning to PWG to a lot of fanfare, and they surprised everybody. Said that match was for the number 1 contendership for the PWG title. So I was like, oh, look at that. Stakes raised. But the match I wanted to see was Malachi Black and Brody King tag teaming against 2 guys I knew nothing about. But get this, Jack. One of them is Demon something in his name, but the other guy was Black Taurus. He's a Minotaur. So I watched Malachi Black and Brody King beat up a Minotaur. And honest to goodness, man with a beast of a head who came out to Slipknot's Devil and I. So a good night overall. Main event was Bandito defending the PWG title against Davey Richards.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've heard a lot about PWG shows and how crazy they can get, how, as you mentioned, balanced they usually are with, having different match archetypes. And the one thing I know that they're notable for is that unless you're there live, the only way to see the events is waiting months for them to put it out later on.
Yes.
So, yeah. And surprisingly, when they did their first show back, I saw a lot of coverage. I didn't see too much this time, except for the fact that Malachi and Brody picked up the win for the tag titles.
And that was another big surprise. They announced that the titles that were vacant are going to be decided by that match. So as soon as they made that announcement, Malachi Black and Brody King they just ran at the 2 other guys, destroyed them, and got that match started hot.
Yeah, and I believe the previous tag title holders were formerly the Rascals, now MSK, correct?
I think you're correct. I think those guys were holding those PWG titles hostage even after they started with NXT and had to relinquish them. Yeah, I think you're 100% right there, sir.
Yeah, and I bring it up because before we started recording this, I was watching NXT, and I told my dad it's quite funny that I know for the longest I've talked to you about whenever we cover NXT takeovers about how the crowd is always 50-50 with MSK on NXT 2.0 tonight. That's something that's changed in the process of our last recording, and now is NXT has become NXT 2.0.
Yes.
MSK comes out and they start posing in front of the camera, and behind them you just see a bunch of fans doing thumbs down and booing them.
Oh man, having a rough go. One spot I have to tell you about, Jack, involves actually Trey Miguel, somebody who's very familiar with MSK, right?
Yeah.
So in a 3-on-3, there's too many. Oh, I got to mention one guy. Jack, there's a guy named Jack Cartwheel. I never heard of him. He has Jack Cartwheel on his shorts. And before I can even ask myself in my mind, what the heck is a Jack Cartwheel? The crowd is already doing that PWG thing where they're going, you never guess what everyone's excited to see. He does a cartwheel, Jack. This is his shtick. He cartwheels into his offense, into the corner. I think he cartwheeled out of the ring, a la kind of Reggie, 24/7 jamming Reggie. Incredible, but that's not the spot, Jack. So imagine 3 guys, I'll call them A, B, and C. and the other team is 1, 2, and 3. Even though one of the men is Trey Miguel, the other is Jack Hartwig. Well, A gets 1 in a sleeper, and 1 gets B in a sleeper, and B gets 2 in a sleeper, and 2 gets C in a sleeper. And this is all happening at the same time. No one's let anybody go, okay? C gets 3 in a sleeper, so now 6 men are either in a sleeper or have somebody in a sleeper, and man 3 gets the referee, Knox. I forget his first name, from AEW. Rick Knox in a sleeper, to the delight of everybody in the room. How does Rick Knox wrestle out of that sleeper hold, Jack? He sits down, picks his legs up so that he falls to the ground on his butt, and he's given 6 people simultaneously a stunner.
My gosh, I can only imagine what that looked like.
He flips them all off. He starts doing this. He starts stone colding up a bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a sight to behold. A sight to behold. And a sight to behold, mind you, on the same night I saw a Minotaur fight.
That truly sounds like a lot of fun. I don't know if I want to say it's on par or the opposite of Extreme Rules, because I don't know. Some parts were good. Some parts were like a tough watch, I guess you could say.
I got you. You know what I was thinking about Extreme Rules? Because I didn't watch it, but I did listen to people talk about it like we're going to. And I think WWE just has such a... I mean, they've got such a... What's the word? They have such an uphill battle to climb when it comes to us, right? Because you and I, we're gonna hold them to this really high expectation. And do we hold it universally across all platforms and wrestling companies? No. I went to a show called Three Mendes. What does Three Mendes mean, Jack? They don't know either, because it had no bearing on the match types, right?
Yeah.
You know, think of All Out. Like, did anyone say, "Oh, what does it mean to be all out"? Are we are we holding true to the theme of all out?
Yeah.
You know,
what is the theme of Full Gear, or
right? What does that even mean? But this one, right? We're all going to be obnoxious critics about why is there only one Extreme Rules match in an Extreme Rules pay-per-view?
Yeah, that was my exact thoughts. I mean, I get the whole thing of, not wanting to overdo things, and how would you say, like, oversaturate to the point where like you have all these matches with all these spots, but only one match on the card gets a stipulation, like. The following night on Raw, see, this is the good part of us recording on Tuesday. We know what happened on Raw. The following night on Raw, we got a no disqualification, no count-out match between Damian Priest and Sheamus, who fought on this pay-per-view with Jeff Hardy in just a regular triple threat, which is technically no disqualifications.
Right.
Triple threat. And then we saw, which again, showing just how much can happen between our recording sessions, we saw a new WWE champion Big E, who won by cashing his Money in the Bank on Bobby Lashley a couple weeks ago. We saw him defend the title against Bobby Lashley in a steel cage match on Raw. And you just kind of think to yourself, is there no place we could have subbed in these stipulations and matches on the pay-per-view? Like, that's supposed to be the big card? I don't think anyone will complain about getting these matches for free on television, but, like, it just, how would you say, in a logical sense, it just kind of seems weird to have these extreme matchups a day after the pay-per-view that was supposed to be extreme based, like the one night that we go extreme in WWE. Apparently,
I saw as much as the opening preamble, or like the opening video package, where it turns out that like they just changed the cadence and they said, "We're Extreme Rules." Like, extreme is the subject of the sentence, and rules is a verb, the predicate of the sentence. Extreme Rules, right?
Yeah.
But, like, you know, just to close this out, you know, you look at a PWG, they don't have regular TV, so all of their effort is put into that event like Sundays, right?
Yeah.
AEW has demonstrated at least a better sense of how to put their emphasis on these cost money pay-per-views, right?
Mm-hmm.
But kind of, you know, give people bought in with these free shows on TV. Mm-hmm. WWE, I think, is in the position where they just have too many masters to serve. And they're like, well, we got to do this stuff for USA to make them happy. We got to do this stuff on Fox to make them happy. And also, we've got our own things going on Sundays.
Yeah.
What do we do about those? You're like, whatever we can do. Just make a 6-man.
Yeah. And this is why I think, like, I've always, like, emphasized that, you know, they won't do it for, like, because of money purposes, but they would probably greatly benefit if they cut like a couple of their pay-per-views and allow themselves more time to not only build big weekly shows, but in a sense provide more time to hype up to an event that's maybe 2 months in advance rather at the end of the month.
Yeah, this has happened the last couple of years, but we're building to 2 pay-per-views at this point because Crown Jewel is right around the corner.
Yeah, and they're building to it so much that they booked the match already before one match had finished its outcome.
Yep.
And not only that, they're also still continuing to build the hype for the draft, which is coming up starting this week, continuing into next week.
And nothing makes me more hyped for a draft than a wrestler just randomly changing their brand for no reason before the draft. I guess the Money in the Bank is a reason, and I guess winning the belt is reason enough for him to stay on the brand. But, like, honestly, Jack, we just started talking about this draft. It's coming up, and it's like, or maybe it just happens when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the one thing that also we've talked about is just WWE, for the most part, doesn't have a reliable sense of continuity, especially with their rules.
No, because they're all at the beck and call of a crazy old man who's losing more and more of his, like, faculties every day.
Yeah, and, I mean, bringing that up, one thing I would definitely have to start off with about that scene as you bring it up. Man, you really wish they didn't cut as many people from, like, the production staff, because Extreme Rules starts, and both on the pre-show and at the start of the show, we're hearing multiple different commentary teams. We're hearing the
I heard about that.
The Spanish, the French. So, it was like hearing that. At first, I thought it was just an issue with Peacock, but then everyone was saying, no, it's actually a WWE production issue that they're trying to solve. And, you know, I'll give them props. They got it resolved pretty quickly. Like, they got it resolved before the first match started, but wasn't really that great of a start to, I don't know, or just be so confused as to what you were even listening to.
Goodness gracious. Jack, did you, now I like how Friday's podcast episode was you and Dom for 20 minutes giving each other updates on each other and your day-to-day and all that you're doing. And we started with however many minutes it's been just trash in WWE. Because we're AEW shows, Jack. We're on that payroll. Yes.
Yeah, we're on the payroll for all these different companies.
Tony Khan signs my checks.
You're about to see the graphic. The Rule 34 podcast is all elite.
Yes. The podcast.
But, I mean, it's like you said, you know, I think it's because of the fact that a precedent has been set by this company that
very much so
are so critical.
Yep.
Or at least we are. And
not only,
what you were saying, sir?
Not only has that precedent been established, but it also is being, like, painfully ignored. You know what I mean? It's not like WWE or anybody came out and said, hey, this year is going to be different. We're going to have one Extreme Rules match, but it's going to be a killer one. It's going to be the Demon versus the Tribal Chief. You know what I mean? They could have done that.
Yeah.
But they're just going to act like this is business as usual. You know, like... And you tell me, Jack, how many times did Michael Cole say, it's the night WWE goes extreme? Yeah. I bet they didn't cut any of those out of his script.
Yeah, it's like and the main thing I want to emphasize is that when we're like, of course, when you see like all these other people on like social medias, when they're very critical, it's like it's from a negative standpoint, whereas with us, we're critical of it because we want to see it succeed, because we know it can succeed. We're critical because we want better for not only them but the people that they're employing. You know, a lot of the different wrestlers that we just want to see be doing better rather than what a lot of them are doing. Like look, as much as I know you don't like him, but look at how well Damian Priest has been handled on the main roster. Matt Riddle has been handled on the main roster, and then look at the way others have been handled, and it's like, look, you've done good with these two. Why can't you do that on a consistent basis?
WWE, if we're teachers, Jack, WWE is that B- student that isn't trying hard enough to be an A student. But we know they can.
And the biggest like thing I can like show how true that is that people, I mean, they're starting to get better now with their weekly shows, but for the longest time, people complained that their weekly shows were just so hard to sit through, but yet no one has an issue for the most part when the pay-per-views come, because it's like they start throwing on their A game for the pay-per-views. Yeah. And, you know, like, if I remember correctly, like, this past year, I remember, like, we were just on this, like, huge streak from, like, I think it was, like, either, like, Clash of Champions or Hell in a Cell last year till, like, I almost want to say, like, now, where, like, they were just on this consistent streak where even, you know, the filler pay-per-views were really good, and they were just on this streak where each pay-per-view they were bringing their A game, and we were being critical, not really of the pay-per-views, but of them saying, you know, look at how good of a product you're putting on, how much of a logical product you're putting on with these pay-per-views. Why can't you do that with the weekly shows that will make more people tune in?
Yeah.
And it follows the theme here again, because honestly, this was a really good pay-per-view as much as like it was filler, and there wasn't any like, you know, big really like big changes, big shifts. It was just kind of like a pay-per-view to have a pay-per-view. They still went out and did a really good job of, you know, having good matches, advancing different storylines, setting up storylines.
Yep. And let's go. Let's talk about it, Jack. Did you see the pre-show?
I did not.
I heard that Liv Morgan and Carmella had a serviceable match in the sense that, you know, it was okay.
Yeah, I heard.
And get this. I hear, Jack, it was the only match to not be over a title.
That is correct. I just realized, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that the wildest thing?
Oh, wait. Well, it was until they announced on the pre-show the opening match.
Oh, you're correct. Right.
Which I didn't mind the opening match. I, again, just, you know, the whole thing about precedent and stuff. I just didn't like that they announced a match like this literal minutes before the pay-per-view started.
Yeah, for sure. So Liv Morgan picks up the win. And I like Liv Morgan. She's someone, you know, new face, so it's like, so we're building her up.
Yeah.
Now the night starts proper. Extreme Rules. And we're going to demonstrate that with this very regulated 3-on-3 match. Who we got, Jack?
We got Lashley teaming up with AJ Styles and Omos versus The New Day. Now, we know Lashley is obviously still after The New Day because, you know, Big E just took his title. But I kind of, again, it's probably due to the fact that I'm not watching the weekly shows, but I thought it was a bit random to pair him with Styles and Omos.
Yeah, so I started to watch the show, Jack. I got as far as the opening bell of this match. But I did hear Pat McAfee on commentary just sort of like make a connection that Bobby Lashley is, you know, frustrated to have just lost his title, and that AJ and Omos are in the same position as tag team champions who only a month ago at SummerSlam lost their titles and aren't quite over it either. So I thought, you know, okay, nice try.
And as to be expected from like these multi-man matches, it was pretty fun. They let people have their moments and shine. And then, since there's not really much to talk about that, we get the finish where it's looking like Lashley's gonna put him away, but then Styles tags in because he wants the glory, apparently, to what commentary says. And then Lashley stops him from doing that because he's angry that he tags himself back in. And then that's when the sequence happens, and then Big E gets Lashley up, hits him with the big ending 1, 2, 3. And it just makes me wonder here, because, obviously later in the night we get promos from both men where, that's when it's announced that they're going to be facing tomorrow, or Monday, that they would be facing for the title in a true one-on-one match, since they haven't had one, because technically Big E cashed in after Lashley's match, which helped him win. It wasn't a true match in Lashley's word.
Right.
But the one thing I had on my mind, because it's okay, Lashley lost the title. He's the one that takes the fall here. And then he gets beat in that steel cage by Big E clean. It makes me wonder, because as we mentioned, draft's coming up. I wonder if Lashley's heading for SmackDown.
I don't know where I think Lashley's headed for. Goldberg.
That is true. He does have Goldberg to deal with at Crown Jewel.
Yeah, and he's got a couple of heaters, to borrow the phrase, in the form of Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander as of Monday.
That is correct. They brought back the Hurt Business on Monday, which it's weird. When they first did it, I remember you and I were discussing what from a storyline perspective, where could this go? And then it didn't go anywhere. It was just, they broke up the Hurt Business, and that was it.
Not gonna lie, that's while a lot of people are excited to see Big E as champion, well deserved, couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I'm excited that he removed the championship from what's potentially going to be a match with Goldberg.
Yeah, that is definitely something I'm really glad about, and then spoilers for Mondays. As we know, Drew comes out and also wants to challenge Big E. And it just makes you think, okay, well, like I said, maybe if Lashley is SmackDown bound to give Roman some fresh feuds, is this Drew's way out of Raw to go on to SmackDown and freshen up the Tribal Chiefs feuds?
I was excited to see on Instagram Drew challenging, right? Because I don't know if you remember this, Jack, but he was actually forbidden from challenging for as long as Lashley was champion.
Yeah, and I talked about continuity earlier. This is their one moment of shine. They're showing, Drew. The moment that title got off Lashley, it just shows that Drew was watching and he wasn't gonna wait long. If it wasn't for that stipulation, he would have probably still been pursuing it to this day.
So he's able to dig himself out of gender mid-card heck.
But decent enough match, and like I said at the beginning, it kind of sets up future storylines in the sense of what happens with Lashley and the Hurt Business now, and
what happens with Big E.
Yeah, I'm honestly hoping Big E gets a lengthy reign. I like you said, I don't think anyone could be more deserving of that title than Big E. So it was really good to see him get that. And then the next match is our first title match. SmackDown tag title match between the Usos and the Street Profits. Fresh matchup. One thing that people have been asking for, when it comes to the weekly shows, to, rematches and stuff. First, I think, I don't know, again, I don't keep up with weekly products, so I don't know if they did this match on a SmackDown or not, but this is a first time matchup to me, at least. I don't think I've ever seen these two face.
Right. We've seen ad nauseum Street Profits up against New Day and Hurt Business. But this feels really great. The Usos only just recently came back together a couple months ago, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, you've got this fresh matchup between two teams, and there's a certain vulnerability in one of them because Montez Ford is so taped up more than Punk's wrists. around his waist.
Yeah, and so adds a nice little storytelling touch to it because that becomes the target throughout the match. And much like we had wished for it to have been more of a focused story in the Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks match, here they did put focus on the fact that throughout the match, Dawkins was being wary about Ford's injured midsection and was kind of doing anything and everything to avoid Montez being the one to take the most damage.
I like that balanced observation, Jack. That is it biased? It was balanced. It was fair. Yes.
Because I think that was our biggest criticism of it was that, it needed more story to it, especially when they did, the super kick with thumbtack spots. Though a cool spot, would have been improved by, if throughout the match, we mentioned if Penta was actively trying to prevent his brother Phoenix from getting, hurt. And,
yep.
To show the parallel, that's what they did here. Dawkins was all about protecting Ford. Right till the final bell, where they're about to super kick Ford, who's like all groggy on the ropes, and Dawkins pushes him down, like face flat down onto the ring mat to take the super kick from the outside. But that in turn allows for, him to go out and the Usos to double team Montez for the win.
Wow.
So, nice storytelling perspective. As I mentioned, not much changed. Usos still retain, mainly because their reign has kind of just barely been getting started.
Yep.
So, nice little match here. Gives them another great match under their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Could still continue the storyline. I won't say necessarily to do it soon, but like it leaves the door open for like the later on match with the Street Profits where they claim we weren't at 100%.
Right.
You didn't beat us at 100%.
Right.
And then the next match, this match was kind of the reason why I was saying I don't know whether to say you had more fun at that show than if you had been watching, but it's Charlotte Flair defending her Raw Women's title against Alexa Bliss. And I'll give them this, at least it didn't have any, like, Lily in it. Like, they didn't include any of the doll.
To put it frankly, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's really funny that you called what you were trying to say Lily, because I think we got a little bit of Lily in the main event, right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's like...
And for folks listening who aren't sure what we're talking about, Charlotte Flair, the daughter of Ric Flair, the queen of North Carolina, right? 14-time women's champion, right? Is she up to that? 13?
I think she's supposed to be at 14, but they stopped counting NXT, so they say she's 12-time now.
Oh, that's right. Oh, no. We're rewriting history. She's defending her title against Alexa Bliss, who is possessed by a character who is no longer a part of this company.
Yes.
Possessed by the Fiend, so it's got a lot of spooky elements, and has this unhealthy relationship with a creepy doll with skulls for teeth.
Yeah, Willie. And so it's like I feel like I make people like angry whenever I say this, like whenever like I mention this, but when it came to the Fiend and now this Alexa Bliss stuff, I just don't understand how people get into it and how they think it fits today's times.
I know what you mean, Jack, and it's funny to hear you say that because it doesn't surprise me as much because she's Hot Topic. And Hot Topic is very popular, like indescribably so. And you don't need a lot of rationale beyond she's Hot Topic.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my main issue with like the Fiend when he was in WWE was that there wasn't a clear storyline and like direction for the character. Like it seemed at first he was going after the people he wronged them, but then
yes,
out of nowhere, oh no, he's challenging for the main title. Why does this monster care about titles and like, you know, and stuff? And it was like,
agreed.
And comparing it to, and it's not to say that like dark characters can't fit in today's time, because compared that work and Alexa Bliss's work to the work of Malachi Black, you know, and the way he implements like the dark aspects of it, but not into a sense where it's almost like supernatural. It works better because, you know, Aleister Black can still, you know, have someone do offense to him. He can take offense and, you know, actually sell it, versus where it was like the Fiend wasn't selling the offense that was being delivered to him. He somehow like was implementing all these different supernatural abilities. Like, I don't know, to me it just wasn't the way to fit that type of character. And like I mentioned, because it didn't have a direction, it was tough for me to kind of understand, well, what is the point of it?
For sure. So, you know, especially with the Fiend being released from his contract, we never got that payoff. And so we have this character who's just as aimless, right?
Yeah.
I'm grateful that she challenged for the title. So, you know, there's some motivation behind the things she's doing. I don't know if you caught it. Did you see the like back and forth that they had, that promo, Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss?
Yeah.
There's one in particular that like they were hitting pretty hard, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, I've been pretty vocal about it on the podcast about the fact that I don't quite enjoy Charlotte Flair, the character, and her things, but I have to give credit where credit is due. That promo between her and Bliss was really good because, you know, calling the fact that they both kind of called each other out for, hey, you aren't original. Well, you aren't either.
Oh my. So Jack, as somebody who watched last night or Sunday night's event, did the match live up to the tension of that promo?
I would personally say no, but that's just my opinion. I didn't quite enjoy it as much. It felt like a decent title match, you know, to fill in for the pay-per-view, but you know, it wasn't anything special.
Yeah.
And I guess the way they, like, made up for that was the post-match, but the post-match went, like, way longer than it should have.
That's what I heard.
But the post-match kind of made up for it because Charlotte retains, and then, you know, I brought up the fact that the match didn't have any Lily. Well, the post-match has Lily, where Charlotte Flair's kind of just continuing to taunting the crowd, and she just grabs the Lily doll and proceeds to start ripping it up, ripping it to pieces, and then that's when Alexa Bliss comes and attacks her, but Charlotte escapes, and that's when we get about like 10 minutes of Alexa Bliss like picking up the pieces of Lily and like having a tantrum about it. And what I found quite funny is this is the benefit of having crowds back, is they can just take over whenever they feel like it. You just hear the crowd start chanting, "Thank you, Lily."
I heard about that, and that's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
Thank you, Lily.
The crowd really got me there. I started laughing.
Wow.
And, you know, props to Alexa Bliss, because if I was in that ring, I probably would have broken, cracked right there.
Yeah.
The fact that
Jack, and am I correct in saying that on Monday, again, exciting to record with you on Tuesday, she wasn't on at all, right?
Nope. Apparently the reports are that Alexa Bliss will be off TV for a while now. You know, as always with rumors, there's never a 100%, you know, validity to them. But if that's true, then, you know, basically what we were saying, you know, kind of about like, you know, her kind of being aimless now that the Fiend's no longer here. It's more than looking like, hey, if she's taking these months off and that was the finish of that match was Lily getting ripped up, maybe we see a potential gimmick change in Alexa Bliss moving away from this character now.
Moving away or moving even more in, right?
Yeah.
Like, you could either go, oh, I'm cured. The spirit of whatever was in me was in Lily the whole time. Or you can go, oh, actually, things are even worse, and I'm even more demonic because of this thing that was so precious to me was destroyed. I've been plotting my revenge for 4 months.
Yeah, and that's all I was going to say. If it's true they're keeping her off TV for months, that gives them time to really plan this out so they don't make the same mistake with The Fiend, especially because based off the post-match and the way Alexa reacted, it doesn't give off the vibe that the character's going to be gone.
Yeah.
So it makes you think that hopefully they plan out that she can maybe find a way to dwell deeper into the character.
Hey, Jack, how much time we got?
We have about 8 minutes.
Got it. 8 minutes and 3 more matches.
So, more than likely, we'll have to go into a second episode unless I pull a Dominic like last episode.
And speed run it.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised
we won't do that.
He got all that in within like a minute and 30 seconds.
One of my favorite moments of that episode that I listened to was you told him you have 2 minutes, and like with all the confidence in the world, he goes, "I got time." Yeah. Hey, Jack, with 8 minutes, I want to ask you about that episode. Because you guys were talking about tier listing zombie maps, right? Is it a certain franchise that's got zombie maps?
The Call of Duty franchise.
Call of Duty. I only know of one, if my memory serves me correctly, and I think you call it out during that speed run part of the episode. It's one that you like throw into D tier because you describe it as it's just a room.
Yeah.
What game did that come from? That one room.
So this came from the game World at War, I believe, and this was like the very start, like before the Call of Duty franchise was just like campaign and I think multiplayer. So this was like their first shot at like trying out zombies, and this was the very first map. And I think it's tough to like really think, but it's like I guess it's supposed to be like a war barracks.
Yeah, so I bring it up because when I saw the title, I heard you guys talking. The only one I have any experience with is that one, right?
Yeah.
And when I heard you mention it in passing at the end, I thought that must be it when he said it was just a room, because that's all I remember. You guys were going on and on about high ground and about, terrain, right? I go, I mean, this might be the same thing. This sounds like something that's completely different. But when you said the room, Jack, it must have been 2004. I'm a senior in high school visiting my friends, the Levas, and I didn't play at all. I hated first-person shooters. I hated zombies. So I was just watching them muscle through that game, and specifically just tearing waves upon waves upon waves of zombies in that funny house, coming through the windows, coming through the doors, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so, like, I think Dominic put it pretty high, but, like, I like my explanation to him, because, like, if I had more time, because usually, I think he has, like, a class, like, right after the time we finish recording, so there's never usually time to, like, go on to a second episode if we need it.
Right.
But I would have explained more in depth that, sure, you might want to put it higher because it's the originator, but... just a room. There's nothing more to do than run around for like, the first few rounds, and then what do you do after that? There's no like objectives like the other future maps came up with. But like I mentioned, since it's the originator, I don't think they had in mind to create multi maps that like continue to have continuity between them and connected. So they just were like, hey, let's make it difficult by putting them in like a 2-story building that is like still very compact and small, and see if they can survive.
Yeah. Gosh, I haven't thought about that in a long time. So when I heard you all describe that, and when I heard you describe the room, I'm like, oh, that's it.
And let's see, we have about 5 minutes. I was planning to say that I guess I'll go into like more detail on the episode that it happens, but Dominic and I, we have very special plans. We're hoping we can get it done in time, but we're planning to move off of Fridays.
Oh.
But we don't know if it'll be a long-term thing to the listeners. We don't know if it'll be a long-term thing. It's just kind of for this quarter because he has a class on Fridays, and so do I. And I have a class that takes up the slot that we usually record in from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., you know. That like 1 hour slot. And we were comparing schedules, and we noticed, hey, we both have Monday mornings open. Like, I think we're both free, like, the whole day of Monday. And so I was telling Dom, like, I don't know if it'll be, like, a full-time thing, like, if we continue it into the, like, future. Because we're mainly moving just because of the fact that our schedules right now in college for this quarter don't allow us to record on Fridays. And so we just made, like, the decision through comparison. We're like, hey, let's do it Monday. And we were going to do it this Monday. But then we also had a couple of other ideas. I don't know if I brought it up on here with you. I know for sure Dominic and I talked about it. I think when we were on the, like, 1 year anniversary of it, we basically talked about, hey, even though we're kind of late to it because we really should have done it at the start of season 2. What's it called? We were like, hey, why don't we change up the intro and outro of things, you know? We got something in the works. We're hoping it comes out well and in time to show. That would be a surprise for if we're able to do it. But yeah, we were going to do it this Monday, but then I told him, hey, let's postpone because, you know, we were thinking of, like, different ways that we can, like, introduce the new intro and outro without it just being, you know, kind of like WWE style. Hey, on this random episode, we're doing this huge change. It was like we were like maybe thinking, episode 100, since we kind of missed out on doing it at the start of the season. But then I told him, hey, moving to Mondays is a pretty big thing. Let's hold off. Let me start planning this out. Like, let me look through the artist catalog who we have permission from to use his music for intro and outro. Let me look through it. Let me see what parts of songs I like that can fit our intro and outro. Maybe give us a new vibe. And the move to Mondays will allow us to do that without it just seeming like, hey, this is a random episode, but we're switching it up.
I get you, and I feel you, and I like the, you know, forward planning and the, you know, being really intentional with the rollout, right? You could also bust the Simpsons, who in season 7 titled an episode the 138th episode spectacular. It was a clip show hosted by Troy McClure. And as a kid, I didn't get at all the joke implied by the 138th episode spectacular. I remember thinking, I don't get it. Like, what's so big about the 138th, right? Like that's the joke.
Yeah, that's what I was like.
There's that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Because I was like, we could just do it and like make something up about it. Like, I don't know. This is the like 3rd consecutive week that we've recorded, and that's pretty consistent or something. I don't know, but you know.
So new night. I mean, new day. Something else new in the works. Jack, whatever that means about this particular wing or section of your podcast, you'd let me know, and I'm ready to go with you all the way. And I have to listen to you all on Friday. If you want to do a tier list with me, I'm excited to do a tier list. I know how to do those. This is the easiest S tier I've ever given. That's what you say.
Yeah, maybe I have a couple. I've always had a couple ideas in mind. Especially when it comes to like wrestling, because I'm always thinking, and like I see other people doing things, and I'm just like, man, I want to do those, but I don't want to like record a solo episode. I want another person to bounce off of. So yeah, that sounds interesting. 10 seconds left. Wow, filled in pretty well time. Thank you all for joining us. Tune into episode 2, part 2 of this